Thank you, Dave.
Great joy to be here with my Pune Guru Bhais. It's just a joy to have this satsang together. On this topic especially, this is really about the most important. We always say that every week. This is the most important thing, but attunement and soul receptivity is everything. In fact, I'll read what Swamiji said about attunement and just its importance. Attunement, I am convinced, is the first and greatest need on the path. It is the final goal of renunciation. It is the only way to find God. And then he writes, what is attunement? In the Bible, near the beginning of the Gospel of St. John, we read, to all those who received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. My guru very often repeated these words. The simple truth is, no human being can make the leap from ego consciousness to cosmic consciousness by merely believing in that infinite consciousness. And then he writes, the essence of the spiritual path is attunement. So this is really the importance of attunement and soul receptivity. It really is the essence of the spiritual path. And we change not by just by our willpower, by our brilliance, by being good boys and girls. We can't change just from our own limited ego. We have to do it by tuning into something much greater, a greater power, a greater magnetism. But we have to put out the effort to do that. And this is what Swamiji talked about so often as cooperating with grace. Our part is to put out the energy to do the best that we can, but at the same time to tune in to the consciousness of God, especially to the consciousness of the Guru. And this comes from within. We can read the writings, we can know them, we can study them, but in the end, attunement is much subtler. And the way, and Swamiji talks about this, and this is the last quote from him that I'll read. None of this teaching, our teachings, however, can change us to the same extent as transformation that is effected from within ourselves. And so that change has to come from inside. And the teachings are important, the practices are essential also to cooperate and to learn how to tune in to that grace, to learn how to develop that intuitive soul receptivity. Master Swamiji talked about attunement, but also as meditation, the power of God is done through intuition. Intuition, Master said, is the calm feeling of the heart. And so this is why we do these practices and cooperate with grace, because when we calm our human emotions, our agitated fears, griefs, attachments, sorrow, all these things, when we calm these through Kriya Yoga practice, through the practice of the Hong Sau technique, and through meditation practices, then when we start relating from the heart this feeling perception, which is what intuition is, it comes from that awakened divine calm feeling. Then we can learn how to receive. And it is on that level of deep intuitive perception. Master said, and I repeat this a lot because we just need to keep coming back to it. We tend to get so much in our heads. We study these teachings, and there's a lot of teachings, and there's a lot of techniques. But in the end, Master, when he talked about his experience of cosmic consciousness, he said that he tuned into it and experienced it from a point of intuitive perception in my heart. And this is the point of intuitive perception. Intuition is heart and feeling perception and not the intellect. And so it's a subtle inward thing. And that's why it's not an easy thing, because we've learned, we've gotten really skillful at all these different skills in our life and how to do things, and we studied and we've gotten degrees. Actually, I'm the only one without a degree. I laugh because our monks in our monastery, every single one of them has a degree except me. I'm the dumbest one in the bunch. But maybe it's helpful to be just simple in these things. And Swamiji said that. He said that It's easier for someone who's simple to tune into these things, because others tend to make it too complex and in the head. And so this comes from intuition. And in this context, Swamiji talked about how we can study and learn to be an artist, but the great artists have this intuitive understanding, and they tune in inwardly to the great master artists and teachers, and work with the flow of the art, which is not just in the intellect, but they do need to learn the techniques, the theory, and the practices. So that's how all these work together. But in the end, we don't go just by the book. The book, the teachings are essential, but they're an essential starting point and a reference point as we go along. So we refer back to the book, the teachings, the writings, our great masters, our wise elders on the spiritual path. And so I'm going to talk about developing of soul receptivity and attunement in 3 steps, in 3 parts. And these 3 parts, they work together. We're always doing all of them. And number 1 is asking, number 2 is listening, and number 3 is acting. And I'll talk about each of these. The asking part is the part that stops most people. Yoganandaji, he would give a lecture to like thousands of people, and his disciples would say, oh, we got thousands of people, and Master would just wryly say, let's see, only 1 or 2 are actually going to follow up on this. And it's because people don't ask. But the 1 or 2 that came after the lecture and wouldn't let go of Master and came running up, and everyone else was filing out the door, and they were coming to Master, tell me, how do I do this? I've tried this and I need your guidance and help me. And the gurus are waiting for people to ask them for their guidance. They're kind of sitting there patiently, and everyone's kind of figuring it out themselves, and going off on their own tangents or asking the wrong people. And when people come up to the master and say, guide me, help me, I need your help, they're eager. They've been waiting, and they really want to help us. It's why they came. They want to guide us, but we need to ask them, and that's really important. And so this is an everyday task or job, praying to the masters, praying to Divine Mother, guide me, help me understand. And for myself, more and more in recent years, as I've been guiding this Ananda monastery, I just ask all the time, whenever there's any decision, Swamiji, guide me. I need to know how to do this. And I don't really understand. It's not in the book. Not everything's going to be in the book. And it's not in the index, what I'm supposed to do here. And I just need to understand what the right decision here is. And so, we also work with our wise elders, like I said. But always ask inwardly, okay, Swamiji, guide me. And the more that we ask, the more that we start to understand more intuitively. So the asking, that's the biggest part. 1 out of 1,000 even bother doing that. So just always ask. Now, number 2, listen. And so listening is the subtle part, because they're not going to come in a big booming voice as a vision. Occasionally they will, but don't count on that. I can tell you, don't count on a vision in this booming voice of God telling you what to do every time you ask, because they don't want to come in that way, because they want to help us develop our own intuitive perception. So how we listen, that's the receptivity, the soul receptivity. And so that means when we ask, listen for their guidance, try to feel it in the heart, try to, do use the reference of the reference books of our scriptures and our guru's writings, and check in with that. But they want us to develop this soul receptivity, which is intuitive feeling, perception. And so always try to listen and try to feel. And when we get guidance, if it's a really big step, like, when we moved the monastery to Chandigarh, that was just like, people were like, Chandigarh, why did you choose Chandigarh? That's crazy. No one had ever heard of Chandigarh and Ananda connected together. And my answer when someone said that is, I didn't choose Chandigarh. We didn't choose Chandigarh. Swamiji chose it. We just listened. and tried to tune in. And yes, it was crazy enough of a guidance that we checked with Jyotishji, Daviji, and our spiritual advisors here, but it was the right thing. And we would not have tuned into something so out there and different if we hadn't been listening in the heart. And when a couple of people started suggesting Chandigarh, I did listen. And when I prayed and meditated, I felt a light in my heart. And I don't mean it felt light, I felt like divine light as a radiance there whenever I would tune into that. And this comes from experience. And it's taken me a long time to develop it, and we're always still developing it, this sensitive awareness and intuition. But then I also checked in, like I said, with my elders and advisors, and this seems like this is where we're being guided to go. And even then, with this listening inwardly, as we started acting on it, we would take a tentative step. And so we came here and looked around without moving here first and just saw, okay, does this still feel right? And so, yes, it does. And so we shifted here, and then we started looking for land and for people to help us. And they really do, the masters, like I said, they're eager for someone to ask for their help, and they really want to help us. And so when we ask, when we listen and learn how to listen, and we just have to do our best. It's a practice. Learning how to listen is a real practice. Om technique is incredible for helping us to learn how to listen with the soul, with soul receptivity, because it's all about listening. It's not about listening to a sound or blood or a heartbeat. It's about intuitive listening, the vibration of God as Om, as the touch of joy. And so all these experiences of the divine, joy, love, they're not created by us. They're received by us. And that receptivity comes through just sensitive tuning in and listening. It's like tuning an old-fashioned radio receiver where you're trying to get the right station and you want to listen to the right person, the right station, and you're listening to the Ananda radio channel and you're looking for that, and the connection's kind of fuzzy and there's a lot of static, and you just barely turn the thing and you just start to get the station and you can barely hear it. But with practice, with tuning in our heart radio, we start to be able to get the station more easily. And in the end, what we're really doing is, again, cooperating with the grace of God and the gurus. And our part is to do these things, to ask, to listen, and then to start to act. And it doesn't mean we don't act until we hear the answer. We have to act all the time. But as we're acting, we're listening. And we're praying, as we act, we'll make mistakes. It's inevitable that as we're learning, we're going to make mistakes in this whole process. But our part is just to keep trying. When we make a mistake and it doesn't work out, okay, Master Swamiji, I'm asking you, I'm here asking you, I'm bugging you again. I'm never going to stop bugging you and asking you, so get used to my presence in your face, asking you all the time. But guide me. How did I go wrong here? Just help me to understand more clearly, more sensitively, more subtly. But we do have to keep acting. This is a world of action, and we can't just not act. But you'll find that if you act with this awareness and in the right way, you start to be, even your actions start to be somehow magically, but really intuitively guided by God. And this is, Yoganandaji had an affirmation, which is really good for Kriya Yogis and disciples. Guide thou my reason, will, and activity to the right thing in every action. Guide thou my reason, my will, and activity. And if we're all, again, this is asking God, guide me. I know I can't do it. I've tried doing it on my own. So I need your guidance and flow through me, even in action. Because, people sometimes get frozen because they don't know what to do. What do? I don't know what to do. And I don't want to make a mistake, and they get tense and frozen. And that doesn't work, because you can be sitting there frozen for a long, long time. They're not going to come to us if we're just sort of stuck. We have to actually start trying and start acting, serving and giving. And the more we act selflessly in giving to others and as an nishkam karma, as an act towards God, then things start also, that gets us in tune by itself. Swamiji said this. He said, those who are the most in tune I've seen over decades of watching disciples of Master are those who are serving and giving. He said, those who just meditate and just ask and listen, the first two steps, but without actively giving and serving, he said, no, I don't see it happening when you just do that. So we also have to act and serve and give, even when we don't know what we're doing. But again, in the process of doing this, acting, taking these steps like we did here and listening, all of a sudden land comes and the big donation comes to buy the land and people come to help us. An architect, I'll volunteer my time to design this for you, and friends come and help. And so, but we have to start acting even when we're not sure where we're going and what we're doing. I gave a talk about this along these lines once at Ananda Village in America. And at the end of my talk, this woman came up to me. She was very elderly and she was from sort of a very rural part of the country with a strong rural accent. And where there's a lot of folk wisdom in those places, that's not this profound intellectual wisdom. And she shared some of this folk wisdom with me about what I had said. She said, that's exactly what my grandfather always used to say. He always told me you can't steer a parked car. And that's what happens when we freeze. We're trying to steer the parked car, but we don't know where to go or how to go because we're stuck. We're not moving. So we have to act and we have to start putting out energy. But when we give and serve and try our best, our part is just to try our best. And just, again, understand that our gurus they're avatars. They're coming, as Master said, he would come on bleeding feet 1,000,000 times as long as one stray soul is left behind. That's their main work, is for us to become liberated. And that's the power, that's the ultimate power of soul receptivity, is how it changes us and frees us. But this is how we do it. And so, again, they've been waiting for people to ask and just to try with sincerity. And so our part is just to try with sincerity to do these things and to act with sincerity. And yeah, we are going to make mistakes. We're not perfect yet. This is how we become perfect, is by starting to do these things, by starting to act, by always asking, listening, and putting these things into action. And again, the great masters of every religion, they've been waiting for people to do this. And when someone is just simply sincere, trying to do these things, asking them, tuning into them, they are just all of a sudden, they have all this almost like pent up energy and grace to give that has been held back because people aren't tuning into it. And so trust also. Part of this process is trust, that I'm a child of God. I'm a child of the infinite. I'm your Chela Guruji. Yes, I mean, if you're a child sitting in front of the Guru, you don't even have to ask. You just know that the Guru is going to help you because this is my spiritual parent. And just have that childlike trust and faith in God that, yeah, I'm not totally sure what I'm doing, but I've given my life to loving, serving, and giving. And I just trust that my actions will be guided. And then if I really screw up really badly and I do the wrong thing, that, as Krishna said, God will lift up and fix our deficiencies and our faults and fix our mistakes even. I believe I've seen this, that when I'm sincere and I try my best and little delusions trick me and I get a little bit off track, just the sincerity and the going to God and Guru and always going back to God and to the Guru, whoever your Guru is, to always be going back and saying, okay, I'm still learning this whole thing and I'm here to ask you again, guide me. I'm still learning this process. Help me to understand. Again, help me to develop my heart, my intuition, my feeling perception, my feeling awareness. And a big part of this is coming from the heart. This is how and why, one of the reasons why devotion really, really awakens intuition. Because what devotion does is it takes our own likes and dislikes, our own sort of agitated feelings of the heart, And devotion simply in the process of offering ourselves to God, to the Guru, in devotion, in meditation, in devotional giving, in Guru Seva, that in that process, our human feelings, our human emotions, our shortcomings, they're carried along in this giving of ourselves with love to God. Because faults and problems and karmas, they're mostly in the heart also. The heart is the solution, but the heart is also the problem. Patanjali defined yoga as calming, yoga's chitta vritti narod, calming the waves of feeling of the heart. And these are the human sort of emotions that just keep binding us and tricking us and getting us caught. And so delusion is mostly in the heart, likes and dislikes, especially the reactive process, reacting emotionally to all of life's events, negatively usually, but even positive human emotions, they're part of duality, and we bounce up and down with those things. And so we have to work with this heart energy and with this sort of funky human emotional heart energy that we all have. I mean, let's face it, we came with that. But if we learn to trust in God and practice devotion to God and Guru, those agitated and likes and dislikes and human feeling, their grace comes and it starts to transmute and transcend and turn human feeling into their divine feeling. And as that process of divine grace happens, our hearts are completely open to them. This is part of devotion, is giving our love to God and receiving that love. And Swamiji would say it this way. He would say, don't just pray to God or meditate on God. He said, pray in God, meditate in God. And so devotion in the end is not just giving our love to God, it's being in the love of God and receiving that love. And that's the receptivity part. And prayer is talking and meditation is receiving, and devotion too can just be giving to God, but devotional has this being in God and just the complete faith and trust in God and the Guru and Divine Mother. And when we practice this over time, regularly, again, asking, listening, acting, and doing it with God, in God, feeling God flowing through us, our soul receptivity, our attunement really, really speeds up and goes deeper more quickly. And again, this is why Swamiji did give emphasis and importance to work, to serving the Guru, as putting these things into action and getting into a flow of energy as we act, because it is a flow that we're entering into, and we have to get unstuck. And so we start moving in the right direction the best we can, and we'll find that just doing this again and again, day in, day out, over the course of a lifetime, liberation can come. This is Master's promise, even in this lifetime. And we've seen it. We've seen some great souls recently leaving the body who have given their entire lives, who came in the very founding days of Ananda Village, and we've seen them, I believe, reaching liberation or something close to it, simply by doing this. These particular two that left recently didn't do great works in their lives, and they did great things in terms of touching people and just giving their lives to Ananda, but simply by doing this in humility and simplicity, the Guru comes again joyfully and gleefully. Oh my God, someone finally they're asking and finally they're coming, and this is why I came, and they really want to help us. And trust that. Even if we're imperfect, we make mistakes. If we're imperfect, well, we are until we're merged into God. But they know that. Trust that they're on our side. They want to help us with all of these things. And this is the childlike attitude that is just so essential in the end, that we're just divine children, and just to go with trust and faith that we do these things and they'll be there, and they are there helping us every step of the way. So may their grace, their blessings just be with us always, and just let's stick together as we do this with this Sangha, with guiding each other, picking each other up when we fall down and helping to carry each other home. And you'll will be amazed at how much can be gained in one single lifetime, even liberation through what we are doing here. So bless everyone. Thank you all. And again, a joy to have this satsang with my Pune Guru Vais.